for getting started off here. We're so excited to have Sam Lewis here. True expert in glamping. He's done a few things. I've visited some of them. Oh, speaking of which, Sam, I also met someone who owns some land in Giles who wanted to talk to you.
Oh, cool.
Which, all four of them.
Yeah.
Anyways, but we're here to, all of the barriers of entries to learn things about the glamping. And this is brought to you by the Utah Short-Term Rental Association that we're kind of getting off the ground. We've got some good things coming up, and we're excited, trying to build consistency. So we'll just turn it to Sam. Sam, tell us a little bit about what made you an expert in the space, and then this will just kind of be an open conversation that we learn. And Tiffany and anybody else, feel free to ask any questions as it comes along. So Sam, take it away.
Cool. Yeah. So I got into the glamping space after my mission. I did 1 year of summer sales, and like everyone who does summer sales, I wanted to get into real estate and own rental properties. But the problem was I didn't have any like substantial money to buy rental properties, let alone even make the down payment to buy a rental property. But I did have enough money to buy a tent from China, a geodesic dome. So that's actually kind of how I got in the glamping space. Is it was the only thing I could afford to get into that was associated with real estate, and then like that sounds cool. Be able to get into real estate with a low barrier of entry. So that's how I got into it, and since then it's been amazing. I have 2 properties that I currently own, and I sold 1 property in 2022 near Zions. So it's been super successful for me. It's definitely been a lot more work than I ever imagined. I probably wouldn't have gotten into it if I knew how much work was ahead of me. All like the real estate Instagram influencers make it sound so easy.
Oh, I mean, it is. I mean, you just find land and just put a tent on it, and you make money.
You just make money. Airbnb, like you never have problems. And I think the 3 of us know that that's not the case, and it really is kind of like buying a job. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting to learn, but I'm super glad that I've stuck with it and I didn't give up after it got hard. Because it's a fun challenge to try to find ways to make it easier. So when I was researching like how to get into the tiny home space, I knew I wanted to be next to a national park. It's like nature's like Disneyland when it comes to like visitations. Or I wanted to be by like a big metro. But being in Utah, there's not really like a big metro compared to other states. So I knew I wanted to be next to a national park. So my very first glamping property was near Zions. This was land that I leased from the FLDS church. It's kind of a crazy story how I got that land. But the FLDS church went into bankruptcy when their leader went to prison. And all the land that they owned was right next to Zions National Park. And it was like the most beautiful land I've ever seen. But the church was now in bankruptcy, so what they did is they auctioned off all the land that the church owned. And anyways, I ended up leasing probably about 50 or so acres for about $1,000 a month. So it was an amazing deal.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and that's what got my start. So we started with 2 Airstream trailers. And then I found out that Airstream trailers are super hard and problematic. Same with tiny homes, actually. Because guests don't really know how to use the waste tanks and all the fun that comes with like RVs and camper vans.
Yeah.
So I knew I needed to get away from the Airstreams as quickly as possible. So I ended up selling that lease agreement with the units to an investor, and that gave me the funds to be able to go into the property that I currently operate, and that's called Blue Valley Domes. This is located near Hanksville, Utah, kind of in the middle of Goblin Valley, Capitol Reef, Lake Powell. And that's where we have the 5 geodesic domes. We're building 4 more as we speak. And that's been a really successful property. It's an interesting market. Hanksville only has a population of like 280 people. And what you'll find if you're in Utah is like a lot of the cities around national parks, like Bryce Canyon, like there's not a lot of big cities near Bryce, Canyonlands. even though it's relatively small when it comes to like labor pools. Then Capitol Reef is probably the smallest national park in Utah, um, but it's been super fruitful for us. We've averaged about an 80% occupancy, 70 to 80% occupancy depending on the year. We definitely saw a COVID bump, but now I would say we're about 70% occupancy and around 200 ADR blended between the unit. So it's it's been pretty successful, and I'm super glad I did it. Oh, thanks for pulling that up. So those are the units. What's interesting is this property is actually in a flood zone. When we bought the property, we were told it was 1,000-year flood, but it seems to happen about every 2 years. So I do not know why the owner, the previous landowner, told us that, because it's definitely been a very tricky piece of land to operate within, but nevertheless, we've made do. In fact, the new units that we're building, we're actually putting on stilts, so if the property ever floods, the units don't get damaged. But these were the kits that we bought. That geodesic dome, the kit itself cost about like $7,000 to $9,000, and it takes about like 2 days to assemble. It's 500 square feet. We put AC units, insulation, LVP flooring, and all of them. We make them as nice as possible and kind of give it like a cool boutique feel to it. And guests have just loved it. So since opening Blue Valley Domes, I've hosted over 4,000 guests at this property. I checked before this call because I thought that was an interesting stat to share. So over 4,000 people have got to come disconnect from their phones and experience this amazing place that's extremely remote. And I just couldn't be more excited with how it turned out, and I'm super excited about the next evolution of Blue Valley Domes, because we're actually doing A-frames instead of domes. We're going into an A-frame kit, a modular A-frame kit. The same factory that built these domes are building our A-frame kits. So then now we're going to be able to offer the A-frames and the domes and kind of see what performs better. And Aaron, thanks for pulling up the other one. That's our Yellowstone property that we purchased 8 months ago. 20 acres in Paradise Valley. And same thing, just beautiful geodesic domes in a nice mountain valley. That one's about 30 to 45 minutes outside of Yellowstone National Park. And this market has proven to be quite a bit better than Southern Utah, to be honest. It's better in every way. It's easier to find workers. The guests tend to be a little bit better, less sandy, easier to keep the units clean, and we can charge a lot more. Because I think a different crowd goes to Yellowstone than goes to like Moab and Capitol Reef. It seems like a kind of more of a higher end type of person. They're going to like Jackson Hole and Yellowstone, and for whatever reason, like our Montana property has just done amazing. It's done about twice as good as the Southern Utah property. So that's interesting. That's something that I would not have known going into it. But that's kind of like a quick recap. I know everyone's
that's great. I think it's we'll kind of dig into a few questions that I know that cool. Everybody's had. I've actually been to his the Blue Valley Domes. Giles is a little town that's outside of him. It's an old abandoned town that's right there, and it's a very cool place. I actually have really cool memories of our kids' campfire outside. I guess one question I was going to jump into is what's kind of the length of stay? Because I mean, I realized I came for like a day, and when I've looked at calendar too, I feel like with these domes, and I also ran 5 tiny homes for a while as well, but because they're smaller, that it's more of a landing pad. Have you found that it's pretty short how long people stay, and or is it longer, or what have you done to try to get people to stay longer if you have?
Frozen?
Yet again, so offensive.
It's pretty cool.
It's amazing. It's really quite amazing.
I have like so many questions, and I think it's really awesome.
We'll wait for this. All right, you're back. Sorry, I can't hear you, regrettably. Technical issues, classic Zoom meeting. You have to have this.
I know. It's just how it goes.
The world we're in now.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that, guys.
You're good.
I just jumped over to our PMS to see what our average length of stay is. I was going to share my screen, but it tends to mess up the microphone, so I'm not going to share the calendar. But it seems like the average length of stay is like 1.6 days, so not long. Most of them are just one-night stays, which operationally is very difficult. But I think the reason behind that is I think it's more of an experience, and people are like, I just want to go experience it for one night.
Mm-hmm.
See if I like it before like committing to book it for like 3 to 4 days. So it's definitely like super short stays. Operationally cleaning, we've had to like really be aggressive with our cleaners because they're out there on the property every single day. Just because people aren't staying for multiple days, they're just staying for one night.
And let's talk a little. I mean, add a little bit more context on the operational side of it, because I think that probably would be the thing that pushes anybody out of wanting to do this. Is, I mean, same day turnovers, one night stays are hard.
Yeah, super hard. It feels like I'm more running like a motel than an Airbnb. I would really consider it closer to a motel than like a short-term rental. The three positions you need to hire, I'd say you need your cleaner, your backup cleaner, and your handyman. And it seems like that's what we need to be successful. We've tried doing it with just like one cleaner, and if they get sick, go out of town, get overwhelmed, it leaves us in a pickle where we have to cancel guest reservations, offer full refunds, try to save like the reviews. So having those two cleaners is like amazingly important. We try to like, I've had super bad experience using cleaning companies. So I like to hire the cleaners directly and put them on payroll. It seems like I can just like train them a little better than hiring a cleaning company to take care of that. Because it is a unique property. And sometimes I feel like the companies get kind of frustrated with how unique it is. So that's kind of the dream team is cleaner, backup cleaner, and handyman. If one of those positions you don't have, you're going to run into problems. Operationally, I would say like it's always the little things that come around bite you in the butt. Like we use electronic door locks on all of our properties, but it's just like the small details, like changing the batteries every 6 months. So the guests don't show up at 8 p.m. and the door lock, the battery's dead, and they're calling you, and I'm putting my 1-year-old baby down to sleep, and now I have to step out and deal with a mad guest because the battery's dead. So I think just creating like SOPs for all those details that I'm sure you both have maybe ran into. Dead door locks are the worst, and some things like that. Just put a SOP in place and put that on a maintenance item, and have your handyman replace the batteries and buy new vacuums every so often so your cleaner's equipment isn't breaking. All that stuff has been a learning experience, and I feel like I'm still perfecting that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like that really in the end, we're just glorified cleaners if you're running an Airbnb, I mean, and or any iteration of that. It's a hard dynamic, but you brought up an interesting point, which is kind of trying to reach economies of scale. I mean, you said this is like a motel. Obviously, having 5 short-term rentals in one spot makes it easy. Like, if someone's jumping into this, like, what's a perfect number for, everything to make sense and the numbers to be great and all that? How many domes truly would you put in a spot if someone were to jump into this and build one from scratch? Or what tips could you offer as far as like trying to get several in one place?
Yeah. I'm not gonna hold back, but I feel like this is kind of something I've learned that I wish someone would have told me. But I would do as many as you can afford. So I would say 10 units. And the reason behind that number, why I say 10, and why we're trying to expand our properties to about 10 units on each property, is that gives you enough money, enough revenue to hire like a full-time position. But when you only have 4 units and 5 units, you kind of have to like pay like part-time positions because you don't have enough revenue to pay a full-time caretaker. So like if you could like pay like 50,000 a year for a full-time caretaker who's like amazing and takes ownership of the whole entire property, that's what I think the magic number is. But we're paying like 20,000 a year for like a part-time caretaker, and like it's just not ideal. So I would say the bigger the property, the better, because you have more revenue to pay higher skilled labor.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. We bought a polygamous compound down in Kanab, Utah, and kind of built it into a few different apartments. And well, the polygamous did that, but we added a short-term rental element to it, and I would agree with that. Hardest thing is just kind of at a scale. Let's talk about sourcing talent. Like, it's one thing to have this. Sorry, I have something there. Teach us about sourcing talent in these two different markets.
Yeah, my good friend Aaron Cricket has helped me with this. He's taught me about the work camp Facebook marketplace groups where you can find people traveling in their RVs and their Airstreams, and they kind of want to settle down for like a month or two, and in exchange for giving them hookups, they'll help you out with different cleaning and maintenance and handyman tasks. So we've definitely used them during busy season to take some relief off our cleaners, and it's been successful. I mean, Aaron, what's your experience on that? I would say it's like a 6 out of 10. My experience on that would be like a 6 out of 10. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of a 50-50 with our same. So we have an apartment that we give to a caretaker. Same type of thing. Sometimes it's hookup, subject to what you can get approved by your city. And some people are great and like they crush it. Others are medium, and then some don't even show up and kind of ghost. The I have found probably just in Hanksville. I mean, when I went there, I mean, we actually met your caretaker because she was also our waitress, and so she has two jobs. Which small town, I mean, it's bound to be that way. But it kind of then this kind of makes me want to ask you another question. Is obviously an opportunity in West Yellowstone came up, but as someone is approaching this, like talk about market analysis of really where and what, and you've mentioned that one of these is a lot better than the other. Teach us a little bit about why you think that is, as well as if someone's coming into this and or what other markets you're looking at.
Yeah, I would say that's a great question. Going back, I would stay away from small towns. Hey, Eric, welcome.
What's up, Sam?
How are you?
I was running a little bit late, but excited to hear from you.
No, you're okay. I was just talking about choosing a market and why I chose the markets I was in. And I was just saying, if I could go back in time, I would stay away from super small towns. Just like Aaron said, like seems like all my employees have multiple jobs, and this isn't like their full time gig. So and it's hard. Like if I fire a cleaner, it's not like I can go hire another cleaner super easily because it's such a small town and it's such a small talent pool that it's really difficult. So going back, I would honestly probably I would look at cities kind of like Parowan, Cedar City, like towns that have like a substantial 20,000 people is kind of ideal. 10,000 people, like enough people, a big enough talent pool where if you need to let someone go, you can replace them easily. And it's not like if your cleaner demands $75 a clean and you're currently paying $30 a clean, you have other options. But me, if that happens, I don't have any other options. So I really have to make hard decisions and pay people extremely well. Markets that I'm looking at, I've actually been looking at Mount Rushmore area. That gets 2 million visitors a year, I believe. All the national parks are amazing, but yeah, I think Mount Rushmore is a market that hasn't been tapped into, and I do think there's a lot of opportunity there. I would say that's kind of the Green River. That's another one. Hopefully I have an exciting announcement in the coming weeks. I meet with the city council next week. But kind of the teaser is we're going to be doing a UFO themed resort somewhere in that area.
That's out of this world.
Exactly. So that's a teaser. Still trying to get a zone change and city approval and everything else that comes with it. So that's probably a very far ways away from actually happening, but that's the plan right now.
Very cool. I mean, going on that, educate us a little bit more on the city side and counties. I mean, it's, I think that now that it's clearly with short-term rentals, there's more regulations coming in. But I feel that with these domes and things, that it's not like a clear and obvious form in the code of like you can't have geodomes. How and glamping in general. How have you approached that, and or what challenges have you encountered when trying to put something in UFO landia?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, the amount of people have reached out to me saying that they want to create like a tiny home village and just buy some land and put 100 tiny homes on it, and they think they're gonna have no problems. It's insane. Like it's a lot harder than that. So where you would start is if you're wanting to get into the glamping space, I would start by looking at commercial property. Usually this is close to a freeway, which has its negatives, but that's going to be your easiest path to success is buying commercial land and then getting a conditional use permit for glamping. If you buy like raw land or agricultural land, or if you just buy industrial land, you're going to have a lot more road bumps to go through to actually be able to get that conditional use permit. Um, so that's where I would start is just look at commercial land, work with a commercial real estate agent. I would stay away from just starting out with a residential agent, work with a commercial agent, and then find land with utilities already on it. Whether that's like an existing campground that you could bring back to life or an RV park that you could bring back to life, those are already going to have the utilities. Those are going to have the water, sewer, septic, electricity, and that's going to be a whole lot easier to like modify. Like I remember, Aaron, like one time, like you were looking at buying an RV park. I believe it was in Idaho, and you were going to add some tiny homes. And like that's how I would approach this industry is like find an existing asset where you can add glamping units to it instead of starting from scratch and digging a well and putting in a septic tank. Find something to work off of and make it better.
That's very interesting and really insightful. Just because I think that everybody has that dream. Like, I'm going to buy land. I'm going to do this, and it's a great idea. It's just that the government wins every time. Not that I have personal feelings about that. That's really interesting, though. Tell us about the buy then build standpoint, meaning like you found these depressed assets and or other things. Teach us a little bit of how you've approached some of that. Of where do you find these, and yeah, teach us a little bit about that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're great. I would find going off that, I would find a partner if that's not your skill set. If underwriting deals and making performas and financial analysis isn't your skill set, I would consider partnering with someone who has that skill set. So my partner, I've done all my deals with, every single one. That's his strength. He's a finance guy. He knows how to underwrite deals. He knows how to create performas. He knows how to get investors money for X, and we're going to pay him this type of return, whether that's a preferred structure or they reinvest their dividends back into the company and grow it naturally. That's not necessarily my strength. My strength is kind of like the construction side of things, building the units, making sure the well goes in, the septic tanks go in, and make sure like everything works. So that's what I would say is like there's so many different parts to owning a short-term rental business. You're a cleaner, you're a contractor, but you're also an accountant at the end of the day, creating P&Ls and dealing with investors' money. And that's something like I'm super, super cautious of is like if I ever take anyone's money, investor money or whatever, like we need a path to pay them back as quickly as possible and super good documentation and bookkeeping. I've seen so many operators with messy books when we like look at buying their properties, and it's a nightmare. Like we can't get loans on those properties because their books are so messy. So I would really, really like just like make sure you have someone who can like have super clean books and accounting. Because when you go to sell your property, you're gonna need that. You're gonna need last 3 years of books and make sure they're all super clean. So I would actually just like kind of start with making sure you have that skill set or you can find someone with that skill set.
Sam, financials is always something that's super interesting to me because obviously all different types of models have different types of financials with them. And I think one of the most common misconceptions I hear about glamping is that they think it's going to be a way less cost to get into it, which may be true, but I was curious if you could maybe share some thoughts on that. Like, what are some of the financial outlay that you're putting into, or kind of what's your average cost per deal? What's that kind of looking like for you right now?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. The units themselves are pretty affordable because you're buying tented structures, so the units aren't that expensive. What's actually the most expensive part is like running the utilities. So if you want to put a tent in a field, you're still going to have to run water, electrical, and sewer all the way out to that location. So even though like the tent's cheap, it's actually the utilities that are expensive. So I would say every unit we're into it about 50 to 60,000 by the time you like take in everything, which is still relatively affordable compared to other types of real estate. Like you can get a door for 60,000. Like that's pretty sweet. But then operationally, your costs are going to be a whole lot more. Just because like they're tented structures, they're not built like homes, and they need a whole lot more maintenance. They're not as efficient. So your AC machines are running 24/7. So you're going to burn those things up every season. So operationally, it's a lot it's a lot harder than a stick framed home.
Some different costs associated with it that probably most people overlook, right?
Yeah.
Which is, as you were saying, kind of looking for that land that's already pre-plumbed, pre-utilities, etc. And I like this operational piece that you're talking about, where you're saying, hey, you have to understand there's going to be additional costs associated with doing it. And when you're doing these glamping sites, are you, and maybe I missed this part, but are you primarily focusing on like multiple units on the same site, or are you kind of doing like a 1, 2, 3 kind of thing? Or are you going for like the 12, 20 type feel?
Yeah, great question. So going forward, we're going for like the 10 through 20 unit counts on one piece of land, and buying like the existing RV park and like modifying it to be a glamping resort. I think that's the best path forward. Um, Previously, we've tried doing like the smaller scale, and we've just found that not to be the best business model. So
Thank you.
But these have still been, I'm assuming, profitable for you. Otherwise, you would have probably stopped looking for them, right?
yeah, no, it's definitely been well worth its time put into it. So
Just a learning curve, right?
yeah.
Cool.
Well,
Like I love when people speak and they like share numbers and they don't hold back. But like last month was our busy season in Yellowstone, and it's starting to become our busy season in Southern Utah, and we did about 60,000 in revenue between about 10 units.
Cool.
That just gives like the listeners an idea of how good it can be during busy season when all the units are booked out, and yeah.
yeah, that's what we all want. Piles of money. I mean, we want to give back to our communities. Just kidding. One thing, kind of the last thing that I wanted to hit with everybody here, and then we'll kind of open up for just any question, is the marketing side of it. I mean, there is obviously a wow factor for this type of unit compared to any other type of real estate. I would say, I mean, there's the social media. So teach us one about what platforms you're on. Are there specific ones, anything different than a traditional short-term rental? And then early on, you also mentioned that the social media, I heard you had a little jest of a comment about how the social media was something that you're like, ugh, ugh. So teach us a little bit about the marketing side.
Yeah. So we're trying to get more direct bookings like everyone. So our PMS, we use Quadrify. We've had a great experience with them. I think it's one of like the top tier platforms to use. They have their own website builder native inside the platform. So that's kind of how we do our direct bookings, is through Lodgify. Of course, we're on Airbnb, VRBO. There's a platform called Glamping Hub that brings probably about 10% of our bookings. Airbnb is probably 50% of our bookings. VRBO is probably only about like 10, and then the rest are direct bookings. So still not as many direct bookings as I'd like to see. We do social media. Um, I am debating. I would love to talk with you guys about social media because you guys might have some good insights. But we pay someone to manage our social media as of recent, and I just don't know if it's worth it. Like I don't know if I actually see the return. Like we pay $1,000 a month for our social media, but I don't know if I actually see that $1,000 back or if I'm just like lighting that money on fire. So that's actually a current struggle. Like I'm in the middle of is like, how do I track that ROI? Like, how many bookings are actually coming from social media that I can't track? Like, is it worth it to keep on doing it? Um, I know other people have had a ton of success with like influencer stays and social media, and we've given out so many nights to influencers to make a post about us. And to be honest, I'm either doing it wrong or I don't think it's worth it. But I'm sure people know more about this topic than me, so I'm just trying it, hoping it works. But that's kind of my thoughts.
No, that's interesting. Just I'm actually really grateful for your candor on that because I actually have a client right now who has a very nice townhome in Salt Lake, and she wants the social media to have success on it. And it's been my thought is I don't have something sexy that I mean your place is very nice, but like the reality is we're not going to convert because we're not domes in the middle of a beautiful place in Montana. And if my friend who is in beautiful Montana is having struggles with social media on it, maybe average home Salt Lake isn't going to have success on social media. I think that definitely there are ways, but it's thank you for sharing that openness on it because it's I think that there are certainly ways and sometimes it hits and it doesn't. But what let's say this, what would be one thing that you think of anybody going into this that would be that you feel like you have done successfully from a social media and trying to drive direct bookings?
I would say make it super well known in your name and in your listing that you do have a direct booking presence. For instance, like one of our first pictures, like when you're looking at it, you can see a sign that says Blue Valley Domes. So hopefully the viewer might find us on Airbnb, but they end up booking us off platform on our direct booking website. And it drives me crazy. Like I use Airbnb all the time for vacations with my wife, and I always want to try to find the direct booking link so I can book directly with the hosts. But when the hosts make it hard for me to find their direct booking link, that's like a huge pet peeve I have. Like I wish so badly, like in the photos, the host can kind of like give you a hint, like, hey, like I have a direct booking website, whether that's like Bear Lake Cottage, that's the name of it. I'm like, oh, I could just Google Bear Lake Cottage and maybe find their website. So that's what I feel like we've done super well. Is I do think a lot of people actually find us through Airbnb, but they understand through our pictures that we have a direct booking website just based off our name, like Blue Valley Domes. Like we try to put that like everywhere if possible, so guests are like, oh, maybe I just Google Blue Valley Domes, and I'll find their website, and they save money. We save money. If they leave us a bad review on our direct booking website, I delete it. No one cares, right? Like it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, I hear that. Awesome. Thank you. We'll kind of open it up here. Anybody else? What other questions? We got a little bit of time with Sam. What would you want to learn more about from him? Tiffany, Eric, what I've talked a little bit more, so we'll turn it to you guys.
I may have missed it, but did you share your listings at the beginning? Did you show us a little bit about like what they look like and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just being able to see like what other people are doing is always inspirational, and get that idea. Do you have any kind of minimums at all by chance? Like when you're searching for a specific size of land, like are there parcels that are too small to be like that's not going to be worth our time versus hey, this is a minimum, this is like the smallest size parcel that you should look at if you're thinking about getting into glamping?
Honestly, no. I wouldn't look at it that way. I would start with the utilities first. If you can find land with the utilities already there, that say like there's an existing septic tank or like RV hookups, like that is like that's amazing. That's going to save you more money than anything. So I think the space, you can program the space to work. I've seen some people do some really cool projects on small pieces of land. But the utilities has constantly been a big hurdle in my career in short-term rentals, is like getting proper utilities places.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Super interesting. Just I wasn't sure if there was like a hey, this is a you know minimum half acre investment type thing, or if it was something that it didn't matter, right? Like as long as it makes sense, it makes sense. But it sounds like the utilities really are the most important part.
Yeah, 100%.
Sam,
And then, do you feel like what's your traveler demographic looking like right now in terms of who's doing glamping? So, obviously, I think everybody has different markets and different draws to who's booking their properties. I'm always super interested in knowing, are your glampers usually pretty local? Are they, 2 hours away from the city kind of thing? Or are they traveling from other states, countries, etc.?
Yeah, great question. Tons of foreign travelers in southern Utah. It seems like in southern Utah, lots of people do the Big Five, all the national parks. So we get tons of foreign travelers. Then in Montana, it seems like young millennial remote workers are the ones visiting Montana. So it's kind of like a different demographic, um, more localized in Montana and more foreign in southern Utah.
Okay, interesting. So I guess depends on the market that you're in.
Yeah.
And then what's your length of stay looking like? Because are these usually just a weekend stay? Are you doing one night stays at a lot of these places, or are you doing certain minimums?
Almost all one night stays.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like literally everything's like a one night stay.
So even if they come down to maybe do like a multi-state park or national park trip, they're usually still only booking for a night.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm assuming that that's typically duo occupancy, two people, two guests.
Yeah. Yeah. Two guests.
Okay. Do you have any domes that are doing like larger occupancy, like in terms of, you're housing 4 or 6 people?
Yeah. We have one family dome that houses 4 people. And that one's actually proved to be our best performing dome. So moving forward, when I mentioned that we're adding like A-frames, those are all going to have the capacity to sleep 4 people.
Cool.
Because I do think people want to come share this experience with friends and split the cost 4 ways.
And do you have any of your like listings that you double dip your listings where you say maybe like the parent-child relationship at all, where you have two domes that are next to each other? You can book them together, right, on one listing. But I mean, I don't know if Aaron does this. I have a couple units that are like upstairs, downstairs units. And so what we'll do is we'll create a listing that's the whole home. And then we'll have a listing that's just the upstairs and a listing that's just the downstairs. And so if somebody books the basement, it blocks the whole home listing. But then if somebody books the whole home, it blocks the upstairs and downstairs listing. So I wasn't sure if you guys are doing anything like that to kind of create larger groups and maybe create more of those family opportunities.
Eric, thanks for sharing that idea. I have not done that. That's a great idea that I'd love to explore.
I mean, if you've got them close enough, right? I saw like when Aaron pulled up that map, it looks like you've got a couple they're condensed, right?
Totally. They're all like 50 feet away from each other. So that's a great idea. I just haven't like figured out how to get the calendars like auto block. So that's a really cool idea.
What software are you using right now?
Logify.
Logify. Okay, I had Logify at one point in time. They've got some really good stuff. I'm a Hospitable fan now.
Yeah.
But the parent-child relationship on Hospitable is actually really easy to set up. And you just basically select your parent who you want to be like the primary, and then you can set some children, and you can set rules on if one gets booked, it blocks another, or etc. So
I'm gonna look into that.
Consider, because it sounds like if you've got that larger group, I'm curious how many travelers you might be missing out on. You know, Aaron, myself included, where we're traveling with kids.
Yeah.
Right? You know, as much as I'd like to ditch the kids for a weekend every so often, it's usually they're coming with us.
Yeah.
So, which, to be honest with you, it's one of my favorite things to do as a family. Like, we love traveling. We love the opportunity to go out and go explore and see new things. And so, I would love to do something like this, but I won't be able to book unless I have something that can sleep for.
Yeah.
You know,
No, thank you. Thank you. I think these like groups and this community that Aaron's making so valuable just for reasons like this. Like that could change my business substantially. And that's why I think these communities are great. So thanks for inviting me to be a part of this, Aaron.
Yeah, you're a member.
sharing, Sam.
Tiffany, you had some good stuff at the beginning. Any questions on your side?
Yeah, I mean, endless questions, most likely, that we won't get to here, and a lot of specifics. So, I guess on that note, one of the questions is, what are some good resources that you've used, Sam, to learn more about this? Obviously, a ton of learning on site, but is there books, courses, YouTube, anything like that you'd recommend that like somebody can just learn as much as possible about it and how to operate this?
Oh, that's a great point. I would say um, there's some people on Instagram who I love to follow in the space who are doing some like really cool projects. And that's kind of where I would start is like just like getting obsessed with the industry and the units and tiny homes and like alternative living structures. That's what I would start researching is like follow kind of all these like tiny home accounts on Instagram, really see what you think is cool and what you're passionate about. And then once you like figure out, like for me, like I thought the geodesic dome was like the coolest structure ever. I'm like, you're telling me I can set this up in 2 days. I can insulate them. They can withstand snow, wind, 150-mile-per-hour hurricane winds, and they're 500 square feet, and they're under $10,000. Like, I'm sold. So I just started like going like super deep into like the tiny home space, and same with like all like the alternative structures. Like there's people building these tiny homes out of hay bales, and then they cover the outside with mud, and like they're making some like amazing, like beautiful architecture. Like, and I find that stuff to be like so fascinating to me. So that's where I would start is like kind of like figure out what you're personally interested in. Um, because once you start operating, like you better be passionate about it because it's another job. It gets really hard. So like I'm really thankful I'm passionate about domes and the geodesic shape. They invented the geodesic dome to cover antennas in World War II. The inventor, his name is Buckminster Fuel. He's like a very famous inventor. He's invented all the sorts of products, and they invented them to cover big satellites in World War II from hailstorms. And that's how they got invented. And then people started using them for all sorts of things, homes, chicken coops, and it's just such a strong structure. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I think I haven't heard of them either, but that's really cool how there's just a lot of options out there, and like it's always interesting to see what people come up with as a unique or alternative way of living. So definitely start following that and determining kind of what your interest is in terms of a niche for that. But I think the other questions are around, just the barriers of the city and county regulations. We talked very briefly about that, but I'm sure it goes much more into detail of not just acquiring the land itself, but then, how do you navigate the city and the regulations kind of portion of it, because we all know that can be fun working with those smaller local governments on how to rezone something and what that process is and how long it takes. So maybe not as much a question, but did you just do it and that's how you found out how to do it, or any useful insight on that portion of it?
Yeah. At the start, I just did it, and then I had to redo it the correct way once that didn't work. What I would recommend, and I'm so passionate about this, is I would figure out whether it's beneficial for you to be in the city or the county. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, like that creates a huge difference. Um, so that's where I would start, and I would use AI as much as possible to figure out the cities or the counties that you have the path of least resistance to get something opened. But for instance, like I'm in the county, but if I was in the city, it would actually be substantially easier than operating in the county. But that's just something that I didn't know. Hindsight's 2020. So I would just, yeah, if you find a piece of land, figure out what county it is, and then figure out what the city's rules are on short-term rental, and then look for land backwards.
Yeah. Like your due diligence process on all of that is probably pretty lengthy and it probably starts with just finding properties that could make sense and then deep diving into each of those individually and kind of, eliminating the ones that are probably a little bit more difficult to make a reality of.
Can I follow up on that real quick, Sam?
Yeah.
So I think Tiffany makes a really good point. Like, obviously, sourcing the property is probably one of the first steps. When you're doing that sourcing and due diligence portion, obviously, like you said, I think using the tools we have in front of us, like AI, Google, etc., right, are super helpful. But are you then, before even making an offer on that property, going to the county or the city to discuss potential zoning and things, or are you like putting it under contract first and then going to the city or county after?
Yeah. No, I think like if you can like lock up the property without putting like money down or your money doesn't go hard, that's always like best. And then doing your due diligence. In Montana, that's exactly what we did. We put under contract, and then we called the county to like verify that everything was done like properly, and it's not like non-conforming, and someone just did it, and now they're selling their problem to someone else. So
Yeah.
Even with my due diligence, like we still ran into some things with this Montana property that wasn't necessarily true. Like the owner said the septic tank was big enough for like 5 additional units, and we trusted him, and then we started the expansion, and it turns out that it wasn't big enough. So like, if anyone is really interested, I'd love to help them with their due diligence process and tell them things to like look out for, like confirm with the county actually how big the septic tank is, how clean the water is. That's a huge one. Water. Make sure like you test the well water part of your due diligence, see exactly what's in your water, because the health department's going to require a test to make sure the water is like drinkable, right? So we install like filters in all of our units and like all of this fun stuff. But that can all be figured out during due diligence if you do it properly.
Yeah.
Is that cycle much longer than, say, like a due diligence period for purchasing just a standard residential house because of all of these additional items you might have to look into and get information about?
Yes, and it's like if you pay a home inspector and you're like, hey, like go inspect these geodesic domes, they're gonna be like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, no. So it's like it's a specialized due diligence, mostly done by yourself because no one's really an expert in inspecting these structures. And
so, how much do we need to pay you to go do the inspection?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Right. That's what it comes down to.
Well, and that's kind of what I'm even learning too. Boutique hotels, I mean, this is an iteration of that. It's kind of a growing thing. I think a lot of it is talking to other people, hiring consultants and saying, hey, I know you don't have anything, but I'll pay you to figure this out and all of that, because the experienced eye that comes in, I mean, I know if any of us find any sort of land, Sam will be able to walk in and go, that's a problem, that. Have you done this? Just because he's done it a few times. And I think that on things like that. I will say one thing that we have learned with some SBA loans on the due diligence side is that traditionally it is longer than a home transaction, depending on what the deal is. Because if you're buying a business, due diligence periods can be up to 6 months. Because, I mean, you're buying a business, and so you got to make sure that it still flows. And so that's probably another piece of what Sam, with you bought that one, it was already a business, and it was still, you basically just took over and then bought the land as well. Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
That was the Montana one. It was
Yeah.
starting operating, like geodesic, like domes were on it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay.
And now we bought the business. Now we're expanding it quite aggressively. So again, that's just kind of an example of how I like learned how I wish I would have done it the first time. So for you guys, I would take that piece of advice if you're serious about getting into it and run. Like, don't try to start from scratch and do your own well, your own septic system. Like, it's literally going to take you 1 to 2 years to get up and running. Just buy like an existing campground if you can find one, and then add units.
Those existing ones are found through commercial agents as well, or was that just okay?
Like Crexy, like I've used like LoopNet, Crexy to find deals, or mom and pop operators in small towns that don't have any online presence. That's kind of like where I'm focusing my efforts right now. Is like, can I find those like mom and pop operators that aren't sophisticated with AI and technology, and like they're not on Airbnb, and can I make an offer?
Right. Yeah, because you guys had mentioned the work campers earlier, and it's something that I'll follow randomly and see these people post from a mom and pop shop or whatever. And I'm curious how they're operating versus a larger, more commercial one. But I think that's really good advice.
Yeah.
Just finding those.
Well, awesome, everybody. I mean, we could talk for longer, but we've kind of come to the end of our time. Sam, what's the best way for anybody to get in contact with you?
Yeah. Follow me on Instagram. My username's Lewis Sam _. But if I would love to partner with you guys on deals, if you find a deal and you feel like you want some help on it, me and my partner Willie, we're all over partnerships. Or if I can just provide value, I firmly believe in the abundance mindset, sharing, and it sounds like Eric believes in that as well. He shared pretty freely some of his advice, and I appreciate him for that. Aaron has done the same. Aaron has given me more advice than almost anyone in the space. So I think
that's why he's not very successful.
I wasn't gonna say anything about.
Yeah, I mean, let's call it what it is. You know, he only has 2 incredible properties. Gosh, it's amazing what you've done.
Oh, thank you, and I look forward to like being a bigger part of this group. So these calls will be great.
Yeah, and as part of that too, I mean, kind of a cool announcement. We were here to announce Eric is going to become our new educational coordinator. So he's going to kind of be facilitating these monthly a little bit more as we build more on the bandwidth. I did tell Sam at the beginning, we just had a big donor who is going to be contributing to the association. That's going to get us some great headwind to get things going. And really what we're doing is we're going to be ramping up the rest of this year with an official launch in the beginning of January. We're still figuring those details out, but we're very excited. There's a lot of moving pieces that will be great for building a better community education network and advocacy. So thank you everybody for being here, and I'll make sure to post this on YouTube on our channel. And thanks so much. We'll chat soon.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. See ya.
Bye.